Hey everyone, Rob here from the Snapcast with the 12 decks of Christmas, and this is my third one, Mono Red Devotion. Now this goes back to the good old times of, Theros and Return to Ravnica. And as you can see up, I have the highlight of what I would say the deck is in Boris Reckoner. But one could almost say it's fanatica mogas, but we'll get to those in a minute. So this was the first highly competitive deck that I decided to run. And it was at the event, the Virginia Beach Classic back in 2013. This is where Bobby and I ended up meeting with Alex, and this kind of began what would become the Snapcast. So this deck was very creature heavy, and it was amazing. It was the epiphany of turn 4 kill when it came down to standard. It was one of the quickest decks, but also one of the more fragile ones, because during this time you had mono black devotion, mono blue devotion, you had white weenie, you had your various types of controls with either Azorius or Esper control. So you had to worry about things like your turn 4 Supreme Verdicts. You can't walk into that too much. People were trying to do just Sphinx Rev for value if you didn't get them early enough. Detention Sphere, if you put too many of the same creatures out. There's a lot of things you had to pay attention for. But so our one drops in this were Rakdos Cackler and Fire Drink Crusader. With Rakdos Cackler, pretty much we always played him Unleashed because he was a 2/2 for 1 at that point. With the Unleash, for those who didn't know, back during this block, the mechanic allowed you to have that creature come out with a +1/+1 counter on it, but it couldn't block, and that was always a turn 1 play. The other one drop that I had in the deck was Fire Drink Crusader. This one was kind of a controversial one. It is the better of the other one drops that you could have had. Some people liked having Legion Loyalist in there instead, but I liked Fire Drink Crusader for the fact that he did have a fire breathing effect, but then he also had the huge drawback of whenever Fire Drink Crusader is dealt damage, he's going to deal that much damage to you. So, there were some games where he was just a brick. You did not want to draw into him because your opponent had all the Pack Rat Sever, or he had a Master Waves with Pro Red who was just going to block and then effectively shock you. Coming in at my 2 drops, I had Ash Zealot. And this was an amazing 2-drop. 2/2 for 2 at first strike and haste. And then whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, I can have Ash Zealot deal 3 damage to that player. So if they try to do any graveyard shenanigans and Ash Zealot was out, well, I just got a free lightning bolt out of it. My other 2-drop was Burning Tree Emissary, and this card still sees a lot of play too. And some of your your Atarka super aggro decks, because you're able to just pump out Burning Tree into Burning Tree into Burning Tree into whatever. And a good thing about this was this fed into my devotion. A downfall to it was it gave me red and green. So turn 2, I was probably wasting mana unless I had one of my spells in hand, or I was just going to follow it up with a 1-drop. Either way, though, all in all, wasn't the best in mana efficiency, but it was great because it was a free creature essentially. At my 3 drops, I had Chandra's Phoenix, probably one of the best Phoenixes that we've seen. It was 2/2 for 3, 1 and 2 red. So that's where Burning Tree can help out with this. Flying haste, and then whenever an opponent is dealt damage by a red instant or sorcery, or a red planeswalker, doesn't even have to be a Chandra, just a red planeswalker. So in your more eternal formats, and that you can use Tybalt. You could use Koth. Any red planeswalker would work for this. And it was great being able to get it back because of the red burn spells we had. We have a total of 12. The other 3 drop being Boris Reckoner. Again, feeding that devotion. 3 red or 3 white, so your white weenie decks could run them too. And a great thing about Boris Reckoner is whenever Boris Reckoner was dealt damage, it can deal that much damage to target creature or player. And also for a red, you can give it first strike, which is always great because there are some times where you want it to have that first strike. You don't want it to take the damage because you could be blocking something that's a 4/2 or a 5/3, anything along those lines. The land base, simple enough. You got 20 mountains. The last creature in this deck was fanatica mogas, coming in at 4, 3 and a red. He's a 4/2 body, and whenever he enters the battlefield, it deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. So on the best curve, playing only 1 creature, we're looking at 1, 3, 6, turn 7. You are burning them for 7 in the face. And that's not barring any like Burning Tree emissaries you might have chained into it, any lightning strikes or magma jets or shocks you might have done to your opponent. It was just generally when he slammed, it was game, or you were one spell away from killing your opponent. It was definitely they're on the ropes, and they need to figure out what to do. The spells. One thing I loved about this spell base here was I can go either way with them. We have Lightning Strike, which is your 2-drop Lightning Bolt, for those that don't know. Deals 3 damage target creature or player. You have Magma Jet, deal 2 target creature player, scry 2, amazing. And then you had Shock, 1-drop deal 2 target creature or player, all at instant speed, and all of them being able to go to either creatures or players, so you can clear the board to make way for attackers, or you can go almost a pseudo burn deck with it with Fanatica, Mogas, and these guys, and as well as Boris Reckoner. This sideboard here was this was a straight net deck for me. Again, this is the very beginning of my competitive run, if you will, a career, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't say it's a career. I don't have a lot of accolades, but so we've got 3 Stormbreath Dragon, 2 Burning Earths, 1 Skullcrack, 2 Spark Jolt, 2 Active Treason, 2 Flames of the Firebrand. Many of you are going to be wondering why. Don't worry, I don't know either. And 3 Mizzium Mortars. The Stormbreaths, these were good in your control matchups or in the mirror when you just want to go a little bit bigger. I've already talked about Stormbreath before in one of my previous decks, but the ability for him to just 4/4 fly, haste, and prot white for 5 is great. The monstrosity effect is amazing too. It becomes a 7/7. Burning Earth, you got to destroy some non-basic lands and deal 1 damage. So it was, or whenever they tap a non-basic land, you deal 1 damage to that player. That's really good against your control matchups because we did have the Return to Ravnica shock lands. So a lot of people were on the non-basic lands for that, and this really helped out. And also in Theros, you had your scry lands too. So just being able to utilize that whole you're a 3-color player, needs to get all of his mana, then this is going to help out a lot with you just slowly pinging them down. One of Skullcrack, this was good against your life gain decks. Mono Black Devotion is actually really good against, because whenever they drop the Grey Merchant of Apostle, sure, you're going to take damage, but as a red player, you don't want them getting life. It's also good against Sphinx Revelation and things like that. Spark Jolt, this was good for like your white weenie decks or other small decks that might have put out some tokens. You just want to get rid of that 1 creature. Active Treason, if you're going up against like your monsters decks, some of your junk decks also had like Arbor Colossus and that. You'll be able to steal that from them and possibly kill them with their own guys. Flames of the Firebrand, possibly the worst, I would say, in this, only because it's at sorcery speed. But again, you get to split that 3 damage among 3 creatures and or players. So on an Elspeth uptick, if you can follow up with a Flames of the Firebrand, it's pretty much like she did nothing. And then Mizzium Mortars. This was great. Mizzium Mortars did a lot of work. It wasn't rare for you to be able to overload this. I would love to see the overload mechanic come back. This almost led me to an X and 1 finish, but I ended up losing to Mono Blue Devotion because he had the 1-drop Owl, sack it, counter target instant or sorcery unless they pay 1. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure I will whenever this is over, but like, he looked out on his board, he had a great Master of Waves, had all the tokens, and it's like, oh crap, I don't know what I can do now to win. And sure enough, you realize he could sack it, and then that was it. That was the game. But all in all, though, it was a great experience for me. I ended up placing 13th out of just under 200 people. Won $100. So for my first showing in a major event, I was very ecstatic, very pleased. And yeah, but that was my first competitive deck. We picked it up. A little backstory. So when Bobby and I first started playing Magic again, we started up because of Warp Tour. Warp Tour was handing out these little packs of Magic cards, and we were like, oh man, this is kind of cool. We should get back into it. So we went to the local game store, and is Atomic Comics Emporium on Mercury Boulevard. It's actually where we played Magic back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, around Judgment, Torment, Odyssey, and that. And so we went back there and bought up in and just, built funsy decks. Well, we ran into the guys that were really chastising, like, oh, that's cute, I'm sure that gets a win occasionally. And Bobby and I were just like, nah, screw this. We're getting online, and we're gonna get the decks that we're gonna whoop some ass with, and we did, and it was a blast. It was a great time. We ended up meeting Alex, Jerry, Chris, and here we are now, over 3 years later, still playing and really enjoying it. But that's it, though. Mono Red Devotion. It was a fantastic deck, and stay tuned for the other decks. We apologize for these not coming out daily, but just with Christmas and everything else, sadly our schedule did not facilitate it, that whole working man thing. But that's going to do it for us here at the Snapcast. Stay tuned for the other ones. Thanks.